Thank you all for joining us today for our SmithRx Full Disclosure webinar. We are going through a very timely topic. It's not a day goes by that AI doesn't hit the news, and especially with regard to healthcare. So we are super excited for the session today. As we go through, please drop your questions in the chat so we can address those at the end as well. And so today's topic is Beyond the Buzz, how AI is redefining PBM success at scale. First off, we'll go through some technicalities for the agenda so that we can all level set and get on the same page before we go into some more details. And then we want to go through key parameters around AI, including support as pharmacy superheroes, intelligent drug pathways. How can AI help us be smarter with drug selection or pharmacy selection? Also looking into the competitive landscape, and then we'll finish up and address questions. I'm thrilled to have Gaston Concilio join us today. He is our VP of Engineering here at SmithRx. Gaston, if you'll introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you, Alyssa. You alluded to it. I'm the VP of Engineering at Smith, and my role is really to oversee the engine room behind all that software that help us, manage complex pharmacy data and help our customers find the lowest net cost medication. I think that as we talk about AI, very important that we move beyond the buzzword, beyond the illusion of AI magic, and really speak about how we're using this technology to solve structural opaqueness that has frustrated members for a long time. And then we're turning kind of data into actual guidance for our members.
Yeah, healthcare is so heavy in data. And for whether you're on the provider side or the patient side, it can be so much to sort through. So really looking into this with all the data in healthcare, how do large language models help translate things like huge, difficult plan documents for a member to add more meaning?
Yes. And a first step, Alyssa, is to help folks understand how, before we can teach how we use LLMs, I think trying to see what LLMs are without having to go into an academic journey or a big lecture. I like to separate the experience of like ChatGPT and how we may have a conversation as individual users to what the LLM is and how we're using it. And to conceptualize LLMs, you got to think of it as an autocomplete on steroids. Like these models are able to predict the next word, predict the next paragraph, or predict the next large amount of content in natural language. They don't see words the way we see it. These models see words as Lego bricks. And then they have mathematical models to predict what is the next Lego that must be built on top of the other one to construct a sentence. So without going in big depths, that's what an LLM really is. It's a model that allows to predict content. Now, when we think about how we can use that specifically in healthcare, we gotta recognize that, health plans can be gigantic pieces of document written in natural language. They're written in language. So this is excellent for these models to help us understand and really act as an interpreting layer. Now, the way these plans and other documents are written is an insurance S. It's this really complex type of language with a lot of nuances and a lot of rules, and it's not as easy to understand. It's not English for everybody. So if a member wants to understand coverage, we cannot expect them to have to digest large amounts of documents and complex rules and then understand. They have to be basically detectives if we expect them to do so. So we're embracing this era of what we call agentic systems and using large language models to create orchestrating layers that can help us digest and unpack questions that our members may have. So when we think about a member asking how much would I pay for this medication, how much would my inhaler cost, instead of just giving you just an answer, we can really unpack that and have these systems deconstruct that questions step by step and then consult a diversity of systems and then assemble that one. And that's what we call this chain of thought reasoning. Think about like when you are in math class and you were asked to solve a problem, and instead of just putting the number, it's like explain your answer. That's what these agentic systems can use. And then in each of these steps, LLMs can deconstruct the problem and use that reasoning to go to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then translate that my cost into $5 because this much is a deductible, because this much your spend has been so far. So therefore, this is what your final cost is going to be. So we're really using LLMs in a way, in an orchestrated way, through agentic systems, as we call them, to provide this reasoning when providing answers to common questions.
That's helpful. And it's huge to be able to connect the dots between these big plan documents and technology and the member experience, and being able to remove some of the complexity to help members better understand their plan benefit. And so with all of this, why provide the reasoning behind the claim rather than just a status? I mean, you've sort of alluded to it. It's just like, okay, my claim paid for $50. I get my inhaler. There's a lot more information behind this, even just what's stated on this slide, that could be meaningful to members.
Absolutely. And that's because transparency isn't just showing you the number. It's really understanding why. And just giving you denied, it may be anxiety inducing if you can't comprehend why that has happened. Imagine a member needing to understand that in order to comprehend their coverage, they need, this formulary data, and then there's pricing data, and there's the pharmacy networks involved, and there's the specific deductibles in my plan. Like that high complex sequence of rules is not something that a human can easily digest. And when provided with like a denied answer, is certainly going to result in frustrated phone calls to support or for help. So that's why the ability to create this chain of thought reasoning will provide the member with explanations step by step of why they arrived at how we concluded that that's the answer, denied approval, or copay calculations accordingly, and reduce frustration. I mean, people don't appreciate black box reasoning. Just the answer in your face is probably not going to result in understanding. The step-by-step reasoning probably would.
Yeah, definitely. And when a patient starts a new medication, them or their caregiver, if they've just been to the doctor's office and whatever other experience they've had getting their care, it's so much information and can be so overwhelming. So then to add a complex concept around why your claim costs the way it does and trying to figure it out from different resources is, most just wouldn't even bother. So being able to offer this to members and have it at their fingertips is huge. Now, in terms of AI being everywhere, and there's a lot of talk about this all over the news and in different industries and updates for new apps and uses, is AI displacing humans or making them more effective?
Well, I'm one of the strong believers that AI it's a power tool. It's a superhero tool. And I'll invite you to consider this. I think of it as thought-provoking, which is I think AI can make us more human. And AI is taking the mundane task of having to source information from different places and have to interpret that in real time while you're on hold on the line. It's giving that time back so that we can be on the phone with you, having empathy and sympathy for your problem, understanding and hearing you out. So it's giving more human time to humans to be human, as opposed to just be collecting data, assembling it together, hoping to come up with an interpretation of that in real time while you're on the other line, likely frustrating and angry. So think of a use case where a member is calling us disappointed about the drug cost, and rather than having a human putting you on hold and assembling data from the dispersed number of data sources, interpreting that in real time, hoping to give an answer that solves your problem, before the phone rang, we can just give you a summary of this persona. We can give you a synthesized list of things that what the agent may be calling about, giving you their recent claims, giving you some of their current eligibility data. By the time you're on the phone, you are prepared to help that person. You understand what their problem might be and equipped with all the answers and relevant details to better assist that question. So think about from a construction standpoint, like, as we're showing on the slides now, having like a screwdriver and a hammer or a power tool and a nail gun. With a nail gun, you can probably put a wall together a lot faster than if you were to nail one by one each, around the frame. So it's a tool to give time back so we can be more human with our members as opposed to a replacement tool.
Yeah, it's a great point to just have another way to help reduce the complexity of healthcare in all of this so that the pertinent information is right at the fingertips of the provider. And so in all of this, we've talked about some different examples, like the member being able to understand their plan documents. And then now we're switching over to logic regarding drug pathways. So at SmithRx, we have our drug pathways engine where we look and make sure it's the right drug, the right source, and that any cost modifiers are applied. And it could be one or any combination of the three to lower drug costs. And in my role at SmithRx, I lead out the team that identifies and creates new pathways to be implemented into the engine. And so it's really, I know firsthand as a pharmacist and in my role here, how convoluted it can be looking at drug pricing, because we're in a really interesting industry where one drug could have many different prices depending on the pharmacy and whether or not it's the brand, generic, biosimilar, all sorts of things we talk about in a lot of these full disclosure episodes. And so we have done this as a company for a long time. We're 10 years old just this month, so a very exciting time for us as SmithRx, all while we're getting these superpowers to ramp up what we're doing in a more effective and efficient way. And so specifically with SmithRx, how does AI help SmithRx find the lowest net costs for drugs?
We are trying to incorporate consistently sophisticated ways to compute these pathways. When we think about how many thousands of new NDCs coming to the market, the numerous dozens of different ways that we can pay for them with rebates, cost modifiers, alternative discount cards, assistance programs, and the tons of ways to source them. Different pharmacies, mail order, retail, specialties. The permutations are finite, but very, very, very large. And it's very important to be able to also apply context to these different pathways, because we want to make sure that we're not just finding the ultimate lower cost, but the ultimate lowest cost available to you, so you can actually act on that transition. So we are using probabilistic models to help us traverse this universe of permutations and then come up with a sensible recommendation that we and our team can assist members transitioning to. So we explore layers of logic to come up with these permutations and then conclude what is the recommended pathways, what is the likely of this claim going to reoccur, what is the likelihood that your ability to transition to an alternative pathway as a result of all these different combinations. And then, of course, our ethos of helping you with patient advocates transition to that in the easiest way possible. So that is embedded into our platform, is assisting our organization in helping members find these lowest cost pathways and then help them navigate the transition as well.
And you mentioned something interesting there with the probabilistic concept. And so when looking at the data, how is that incorporated into the probability that they'll refill the drug or when, or switch products or switch pharmacies?
So we do look at historical patterns and we try to contextualize that to your current state now. So we look at previous claims, we're looking at like type of medications, the alternatives that are available. A human cannot check 50 different, sourcing options. A human cannot, well, they can, it will just take a long time. So especially with how we see the industry in general speeding development, and we're going to see the new alternatives are going to come to market rather quickly, it's very important to be ready to ingest this additional information and re-prepare our models to properly predict what is the most likely option for you to transition to, and the recommended alternatives that are available to you. So we use models, we use traditional machine learning to help prepare a sequence of calls to kind of compose the final picture and output the final recommendation and the list of alternative options.
Data, data, and more data. Endless data for these.
Yes.
In all of this, and, there's different discussions around adoption rates and guardrails around AI, not just in healthcare, but broadly. With AI, who wins and who loses as we move into this future that's AI powered?
Yes, you alluded to data, and is not just having data, is it available for systems to consume in ways that are effective. So the winners would be the tech native players, those who are still suffering from what I call legacy inertia. They're gonna struggle to keep up. Like, as we're showing on the screen, right? You can't put a Tesla battery into a horse carriage. It won't really help. It's important to prepare your infrastructure, and that starts at the top of the organization, not just the physical infrastructure, on the culture of building modern technology and using the available technology to derive business outcomes. In this case, traditional PBMs operating on 80s and 90s technologies are going to have a very difficult time preparing the data, cleaning the data, and making it available for modern systems to consume, and for those modern systems to adapt to changes rapidly. So in our state of transparency and being a modern PBM, we reflect that throughout our organization, including our stack. So modern infrastructure, clean data pipelines, and effective processes to curate that data, it's almost imperative for having productive use of machine learning and other AI models.
Yeah, and perhaps we should go back to basics a bit here, because SmithRx really was started as more so a healthcare technology company. What primed SmithRx with our tech stack to be at the forefront, to be primed and ready for this era of AI?
We are. I think we've built our technology stack to thrive on that principle and transparency, and exploit as much of the technology developments out there as possible.
And it's big because not only are we using it to build out these models and everything, but it is available for clients and brokers to be able to watch their trends and spend and whatnot too in real time, which is also, again, back to the data component, not available at most PBMs as rapidly and broadly with the insights provided. And so this tech stack for SmithRx really translates into so many aspects of the entire product and experience. And it's really exciting to see where everything's going to now that we're using it to incorporating AI.
Yeah, and Elisa, I like to add that one thing that we've done very effectively at Smith is being responsible adopters of technology. I mean, it is fairly easy today to just slap AI into a problem and pretend that it's going to yield to positive outcomes. So even here in our company, we've been very intentional about like measuring and observing the value, so you can carefully deploy this accordingly. Like we've done internal experiments to make sure that if we're providing our agents, our human agents, with technology, are they able to be more effective in those phone calls? Are they able to have accuracy in their fact sharing as they have these conversations? And our experiments show not only statistically significant improvements on our case handling, but also quality showed improvements. Our QA on these phone calls showed that we're more effective at delivering facts, and we're more accurate in those too. So as we expose tools to members and partners directly, we're not easing up on that rigor. We're making sure that the information is not only accurate, but is thorough and provides value as well.
Yeah, that's huge. And we're going to move into Q&A. So if you haven't already, please put your questions in the chat. This first one really plays off of what you were just saying. And it's around having guardrails and making sure that AI is using the information appropriately. And so with something as sensitive as plan structure, how do you ensure the AI won't hallucinate and provide a member with a wrong answer? And perhaps for the group, if you could just start with explaining what hallucination is here.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a commonly understood risk with using LLMs, which is, as I mentioned, right, it's predicting the next word, predicting the next paragraph, and predictions are predictions, and they could be wrong. But there are techniques, there are proven techniques that are able to prevent or reduce by a whole lot the likelihood of these mistakes. And one of those techniques, for example, is called retrieval augmented generation, or you may hear the term RAG, and I won't go into a lot of details, but think of it as a method for ensuring traceability on what the model has used to generate the content. So when asked for specific questions, the AI won't, the model in this case, or this agentic system, won't guess the answer. It will anchor the answer on sources that we have intentionally delivered to the model to use. So we only look at our verified data, and when generating the content, in this case, the answer, is going to anchor all the generated content into references from that additional information provided in the context. Now, this happens all behind the scenes, so you don't realize this is happening, that every piece of content generated by our models, in this case, by our agentic system, will have traceability back to sources that we have provided and vetted, and it will be used for content generation. So everything is traceable and verified. This technique really reduces any risk of hallucination because the model is instructed to only use verified data to produce a response.
And since we are in healthcare, I think it's important to note like how PHI is segmented into the models or excluded from the models. Just high level from an ethical, philosophical standpoint, what kind of framework do you propose to maintain that integrity around PHI?
Oh, absolutely. And very important to make a distinction between autonomous decision-making and decision-making aid. Clinical decisions remain human, and the concept here is called human in the loop. These systems will not be autonomously making clinical choices. They will be providing reasoning, that chain of thought we spoke about earlier today, to a professional who then will be able to more adequately or even effectively make the ultimate clinical decision. When handling clinical data, is very important to maintain, in most cases, if not all, the human in the loop approach to make sure that we're not making incorrect decisions. The decision remains human.
Great, thank you. You've taken a very technical topic and made it much more approachable today. So thank you for that. We're going to end with one last question that's kind of devil's advocate here. What's the risk of not adopting AI at all? A lot of companies or clients are hesitant to use it because of the inherent risks.
The risk is high. The risk is high, and for us, it goes back to our principles. In our case, if we can save a family $200 a month in medication by using technology to properly identify the optimal pathway for them, and we don't do it, is risk of failing to our mission. So I think that becomes almost an imperative mandate to ensure that we're using the technology to guarantee that lowest cost pathway, right? Low cost medication. So for other organizations to not adopt technology, they're risking failing to deliver on their own mission if they do so.
Yeah, and it really helps decrease the complexity of healthcare, which inherently lowers the costs as well and helps with the costs of drugs. So thank you so much for joining as our guests here today, Gaston. Appreciate all your insights. I'm sure we'll be seeing you soon as this is a rapidly evolving space. But for everyone on the call, please be sure to keep in touch with us on LinkedIn to see some of the latest updates. And if you aren't already, please check out our pharmacy benefit news and resources. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We've got a lot of great published blogs and other resources for education purposes. Thank you for joining us today.